Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and how are you doing today? I hope you are all having a very lovely day today. A couple days ago, the Criterion Collection made its announcement with respect to the planned releases for December 2019. So this would seem to be the last batch of releases from Criterion for the year 2019, unless they surprise us, of course. But they announced 4 titles to be released in the first couple weeks of December 2019. So this is very exciting. So if you don't mind, I would very much like to share with you just some thoughts and comments that I have with respect to this December 2019 release announcement from the Criterion Collection. The first title I'd like to speak about is scheduled for release on December 3rd, 2019 for spine number 1006. This is the film from 1933, United States, The Story of Temple Drake. Now, as you can see, here is the website from the Criterion Collection that shows the entry for The Story of Temple Drake. So please, if you're interested, please check out the Criterion website for more information. This is a film that is one that I haven't seen. I know that it has been shown on occasion on, I think it's the Turner Classic Movies in North America, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was shown occasionally on that channel. And I'm not sure as to its availability via, let's say, streaming services elsewhere and the like, but I know that it's been one that I don't think has been given any proper, good, high-quality release on, say, DVD or elsewhere. So any kind of recent physical media release. So I think it's been made available, but I'm not sure as to the quality of the copies that have been made available of this film thus far. So with all that in mind, my friends, and of course for me being in Tokyo, I don't have the ability, unfortunately, to watch Turner Classic Movies, and I don't know of any other way in which I could have seen this film prior to the Criterion announcement. And so this is one that I'm actually very much looking forward to. I had the opportunity to not necessarily study this film, but this was a film that was part of a much larger discussion during one of the classes that I took many years ago when I was taking a class or course on early U.S. cinema. And this film came up in the broader discussion about the sort of what's known as pre-code Hollywood films. And those films, just very generally put, are known for having, let's say, subject matter or depictions of violence or sexuality that might have been seen at the time to be a little bit risque and maybe somewhat cutting edge for its time as far as a contemporary edge is concerned. And so I think this film came up in that discussion. So I know this film, but only in the context of a very brief survey study of a much larger period in U.S. cinema history. So it'll be nice to be able to see this film, and hopefully I'll be able to detach myself from a kind of, as I said, I'm not an expert in U.S. cinematic history, and I'm not a film studies scholar or anything like that. I was just happening to read this in a book or article somewhere. So that's the extent of my knowledge. So I don't have any claim to any expertise as to that period of history or this particular film in the context of that history. But I do know it does have a certain significance in the context of that history. And so I think for me, this is very welcome from Criterion. Very welcome indeed. Let's just take a look here. So if you look at the Criterion website, you can see that this is going to be a high-definition digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack on the Blu-ray. New program featuring a conversation between cinematographer John Bailey and Matt Severson, director of the Margaret Herrick Library at the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, about the film's visual style, along with archival materials relating to its production. So this is something I have never seen. It says a new program, so this is probably something that we can assume is to be Criterion produced. Then there is another new program with critic Imogen Sarah Smith about the complexity of the film and its central performance by Miriam Hopkins. So this is something that I think I was trying to allude to earlier with respect to its place in U.S. cinema history as of the time of its making. And so the word complexity, the complexity of the film, I think is very appealing. So this should be a supplement to look out for. Then there is a new interview with critic Mick LaSalle about the film, censorship, and the production code. So this is, again, another supplement that seems to be of the same or similar vein. Very interesting indeed. Plus an essay by critic Jeffrey O'Brien. So, and then we have this cover here, which looks very quite provocative, actually. And according to the website, this is cover based on an original poster, which is very interesting indeed. So there we have Spine number 1006, The Story of Temple Drake. And if my understanding is correct, that this is to be the first proper release of this on physical media, let alone on a beautiful Blu-ray with high definition restoration from the high definition digital restoration from the Criterion collection, then this is a sort of a moment to celebrate. So this is The Story of Temple Drake for Spine 1006. Next, this is also scheduled to be released on December 3rd, 2019. This is the film from 1960, which is called Tunes of Glory. Tunes of Glory. This is Spine number 225. So this is actually currently in the collection right now in a DVD. So this is Spine number 225 DVD, Tunes of Glory. As you can see, the cover art is mostly the same, although you can see some differences with respect to the fonts used and the placement of the various information. As you can see, it's, the cover art that's shown on the website differs slightly in terms of the placement, as you can see right here. That doesn't appear here on the disc. The information about the director's name appears here. And there's additional information about the stars, Alec Guinness and John Mills, which doesn't appear anywhere on the DVD cover as of now. So this might indicate a change, a slight change to the cover art, but the main component of the art itself seems to be intact. So this is a really wonderful film if you haven't seen it. And it is a fairly, I don't want to say old DVD release, but it is a DVD release with the Line logo, and so perhaps that might have been one reason why maybe those of us who are into, let's say, Blu-ray might have stayed away from this particular release on DVD by the Criterion Collection. And if so, good timing, because as we can see, it'll be upgraded to Blue, and it will be available on December 3rd. So very interesting stuff. For your information, the special features that are listed on the website are new 4K digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack on the Blu-ray. So this new release appears to be a new 4K digital restoration, which would make it different from this DVD release, which is new high definition digital transfer with restored image and sound. So it'll be nice to see what the differences are between the the image quality from this new release and the current DVD release. And if there are any significant differences, then it might be an interesting debate as to which is better, etc. So anyway, for those of us who have this DVD, let's not, we don't have to worry about selling it off immediately, but let's just hold on to it and see how the new 4K digital restoration holds up. I can hope and assume that it will hold up very, very well, but let's just wait and see about that. Still, I have, of course, have nothing but the strongest sense of optimism that it will be very, very good indeed. Then there is an interview from 2003 with director Ronald Neame, and this is, in fact, I hope, the same interview which is on this particular DVD as well. Then there is an audio interview from 2002 with John Mills, and in fact there is an audio interview with John Mills on the DVD, so that seems like it's the same as well. Then there is a television interview from 1973 with actor Alec Guinness, and indeed there is a BBC interview with Alec Guinness here, so that could be the same as well. Then there's a trailer, which is also here. Then there's also an essay by Robert Murphy, which is also included on the disc. So for the most part, or at least for in terms of the supplements, everything seems to be carried over. So there doesn't seem to be anything new or anything left behind. At least that's my sense, as based on what is featured on the special features. I should point out that the website indicates the running time at 107 minutes. The DVD, at least the one that I have, indicates the running time at 106 minutes. So that there seems to be a slight discrepancy there, but I think that's forgivable and quite reasonable. Sometimes that happens, so, and that doesn't mean any different cut of the film necessarily, but anyway, just for your information. And the aspect ratio seems to be the same, so 1.66 to 1. So that seems to be the same as well. So there's just that one slight discrepancy in terms of the running time, but I think that can be explained in terms of it's probably the same cut, but maybe there's something going on. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Or maybe it might have to do with the 4K restoration. Maybe they added a little credit or something at the beginning of or the end, which might account for an extra minute added to the running time. Who knows? Who knows? But in any event, that is Tunes of Glory. So we have the current DVDs, so if you want to watch it now, you're welcome to do so. I think it also is, yes, it's available on the Criterion channel according to the website. So if you want to watch it and you are a subscriber to the Criterion channel, go for it. It should be very fun. Otherwise, my friends, we can wait for December 3rd when it will be released as an upgrade, which should be very exciting indeed. So this is spine number 225, Tunes of Glory. Next, scheduled for release December 10th, 2019. This is for spine 1007. This is going to be on 2 discs for Blu-ray and 3 discs for the DVD release. This is the film from 1991, Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World. Now this is indicated as being 287 minutes. 287 minutes. So this is very significant, and I'll get to that in a second. But this is a remarkable announcement. Wim Wenders, as you may know, is a filmmaker that is so loved among film fan circles, and for good reason, because he is an icon, he is a legend of this modern German cinema, and he's still active even today. And I think many of his films are so well beloved that more films by him into the Criterion collection, the better off I think we all are. This film in particular, Until the End of the World, this is one where my experience with the film was only with the much shorter, I think it's sometimes known as the shorter U.S. theatrical cut, or it's known as one of the Reader's Digest cuts or something. But in any event, it was considered to be a shorter cut of the film, approximately 150 odd minutes. And so that was the version that I saw, and in fact, I have a copy of that somewhere on the shelves here. And I remember I was watching that because a few weeks ago I was made a live stream of the Wim Wenders film Paris, Texas, and as part of my personal preparation for that live stream, I actually went back and watched as many Wim Wenders films as I could. And one of those films that I wanted to rewatch was the film Until the End of the World. And the only version I had was the shorter 150-odd minute version. And this was a version that I knew, and it was one that I saw when I was a student, very, very young, in the 90s or so, for the first time. And I must admit that it is, while some parts of it, in particular the soundtrack, some parts of it are quite spectacular, there are other parts of the film, this shorter cut that I'm used to, there are other parts of the film that I find somewhat difficult to engage with, let me put it that way. And I had always known that there was a longer so-called director's cut out there. And in fact, for my preparation for Paris, Texas, and my wanting to explore as many of the Wim Wenders films that I could, I was actually considering trying to get the so-called director's cut, which was actually, I understand it, available on I think it's a German release, and I was actually thinking of getting that, and I was probably thinking perhaps I should get that maybe sometime around November, December or so. And I knew it had subtitles, and it was divided into 3 because, as you may or may not know, the so-called director's cut has been shown or has been presented as a kind of trilogy. In other words, it's been broken up into 3 distinct film components, and it comprises the entire whole story, which is known as the director's cut, or trilogy, if you will. And so I was thinking of getting that, but lo and behold, Criterion comes along and it makes this announcement. So I can wait for the Criterion release of this, and I look forward to, because again, this is one that I only know the shorter version. I've always wanted to watch the longer version, but it was always kind of a film that was gained legendary status in my eyes, and it was one where I had a feeling, or I do have this feeling, that I think watching the longer version would help me fill out some of the gaps, my lack of understanding with respect to approaching the shorter cut that I'm so used to. And once again, I must say that while there are some great things about the shorter cut, there are some things that I think are a little bit difficult for me to understand. So this is a wonderful opportunity for me, and Wim Wenders is a master, and this is a film that for me tended to be on the lower end of my enjoyment, so this will be a great opportunity. And I've heard so many wonderful things. I've heard nothing but great things about the longer cut, and so the 287-minute version, which is labeled here as being the director's cut, is going to be presented here. Now, I should note that there is no indication here as to the way this is going to be presented. As I said before, this film, I think, has been presented in a trilogy format, but there's no indication here that the film will be presented in a trilogy format. So it will be still something to look out for, how the film is actually to be presented. So let's keep a lookout for that. Maybe it's going to be in a trilogy format. Maybe it will be in one cut. Who knows? I'm not sure. But it will be very interesting to see. My assumption is that, based on my own very sort of beginner level knowledge, that this will probably be the trilogy format. Although, please don't quote me on that when the time comes. But let's take a look at that. So when it comes. In the meantime, we have here, yes, a new 4K digital restoration of the film, which is very, very interesting indeed. Then we have new introduction by vendors, a new interview with vendors about the film's soundtrack. Yes. A new conversation between vendors and musician David Byrne. Yes. Behind the scenes program detailing the creation of the film's high definition sequences. Yep. This is a very, I don't want to mention too much, but this is actually a very key component of the film. Quite a memorable sequence. So this will be good to watch. Then interview with vendors from 2001. An Up, Down, Under Roma, a 1993 interview with vendors on his experiences in Australia. Then The Song, which is a short film detailing the recording of I'll Love You Till the End of the World. Then there are deleted scenes, trailer, plus essays by critics Bilga Abiri and Ignaty Vishnevetsky on the film and its soundtrack. And the new cover by Michael Boland. So here we go. And what a fantastic cover that is. Really lovely. So there are a lot of supplements here that seem to be focusing on the soundtrack, the musical aspects of the film. And that's very interesting because, as I said, no matter what my overall impressions are of the shorter theatrical cut of this work, the soundtrack of this film is absolutely out of this world. It is mind-bogglingly excellent. So no wonder that there are a lot of supplements here on the soundtrack, and it's quite dense, it's quite complex. It's probably one of the most famous film soundtracks from the 90s cinema, as far as I'm concerned. So to have all these supplements of different aspects of the soundtrack, I think are fascinating. So, and I think Criterion is acknowledging that, at least tacitly so, when it's presenting these supplements as such. So, as I say, this is one that is a film that is, I admit, in its shorter, sort of truncated version, is one that is maybe not so successful for me personally, but this should make for really fascinating viewing for me and for those who are in a similar situation like me come time that this is released. And I, as I said, I've heard nothing but great things about this longer cut. And so, if so, then we are in for a truly magnificent experience. One that is both visual and sonic, and one that will be such a great, fun, deep, moving time at the movies, and also, in terms of a musical soundtrack to our own lives. So, very, very welcome. This is, again, one of the potentially great releases from the Criterion Collection. I should say also that, just very quickly, that sometimes I comment on past releases about how sometimes a release includes one version of a film and not another. And here I don't see any indication of the theatrical cut or one of the theatrical cuts or the earlier, more well-released cuts being included here with this release. And I don't know, I think it would have been nice to have maybe maybe one or more cuts included, perhaps. That would have made for a very dense release, though, because already we're dealing with a long film that's on Blu-ray on 2 discs. So if we were to ask for another cut of the film to be included, that would have made this package even thicker. Maybe it would have necessitated using a 3rd disc or something. Who knows? But maybe that were some practical considerations that went into that. I'm not sure. But it would have been nice to have an earlier cut of the film, again, just for comparison's sake. But at the same time, I think, sometimes with these releases, and I understand this mindset too, sometimes with releases of different cuts, one of the things that's very important for the creative people, the filmmakers, is trying to define what the ultimate version of the film is in the minds and the public conscious of viewers. If there are many versions, then there's always that room for debate and discussion as to which version is superior to others, etc. Like that. See, for instance, Blade Runner. But at the same time also, there is a value perhaps as to trying to solidify the public consciousness as to what is the version of a particular film. And to have only one version of a film out there rather than having multiple versions, I think helps a filmmaker better define what he or she believes to be the best version of a film. So perhaps that is an indication here that, again, the Criterion Collection describes it as being the triumphant 287-minute director's cut. So perhaps we can see the single, just having one version of this film, the so-called triumphant release version, a triumphant director's cut version. Perhaps this is a way for the filmmakers and Criterion to try to solidify the importance of this longer version in the public consciousness of Wim Wenders' film fans. And so if that's the case, then I applaud that effort, of course. At the same time, I do feel like if there are many versions of a film that have already been released in its release history, then it would have been nice to have maybe at least one of the alternate releases available for purposes of comparison more than anything else. So, because filmmaking is this art of putting together stuff, and there are many different ways to put together these separate components. And so I think to have a means of comparing different versions is, of course, very fascinating. And I think especially with this film, because this feels like such a dense film. And as I said before, the theatrical cut that I saw, while it's not terrible, it feels like it's missing something for me. And so it would have been nice to have them in one-stop shop release. But I still have the earlier release, and those are still made available, of course. So if you are very curious about that, then there, as of now anyway, nothing is stopping you from tracking down a copy of the shorter cut. So I suppose that's something to be said. So that's again a minor point, but a very minor point in an overall brilliant package from Criterion. Again, Spine number 1007, Until the End of the World. Last, but certainly not least, is a release also scheduled for December 10th, 2019, Old Joy, Kelly Reichardt. This is for Spine 1008. This is a wonderful announcement. You know, Kelly Reichardt's films are ones that I discovered rather late, and I attribute the Criterion Collection for first making me aware of the existence of this very marvelous filmmaker and artist and storyteller. And I became aware of her through the release of the film Certain Women, which is a film that was released maybe a year or so ago by the Criterion Collection. It's a brilliant film, and it was the first Kelly Reichardt film that I'd seen, and from there I slowly tried to discover her works as best as I could. And along the way, of course, there is the film Old Joy. So this is a marvelous, lovely work. It is so deep and touching that I can't wait for more people to see it, and hopefully this will be the case when it's released on December 10th. Such a remarkable and insightful work of art, and wonderful job here, Criterion. This is a great way. If this is going to be the last release for 2019, and this is a fine way to go out. I'm truly impressed. So with this, we have a new 2K digital restoration approved by director and cinematographer Peter Sillen. And then there are new interviews with the director and the cinematographer, and also the author, Jonathan Raymond. Then there is a new conversation between actors Daniel London and Will Oldham. Then there's a trailer, plus an essay by film critic Ed Halter, and Blu-ray only, the short story by Jonathan Raymond on which the film is based. Wonderful. You know, I have not read this short story, so I really like that. I like reading the short stories, you know, and this doesn't happen all the time, but occasionally Criterion will do this. They will release the the original source material with the leaflet or the booklet, or in a booklet form. More of this, please. It would be so great, wherever possible, to have the inclusion of the original source material. That would be so wonderful to have with as many releases as possible. I know that's not possible for everything, but where it is possible, I would love to see this go on. And I trust Criterion because this has happened on a number of occasions in the past. El Sur comes to mind immediately. But anyway, here is Old Joy, Kelly Reichardt. So if you are not familiar with this filmmaker's work, a number of her films are already available outside of the Criterion collection already, including this film, in fact. There is also, of course, the film in the Criterion collection already, which is Certain Women. Then, of course, we can wait for December 10th, Old Joy. And if you decide to wait, which that's fine, but I would strongly encourage you to take a look at this incredibly astute, intelligent, very moving work by this filmmaker, Kelly Reichardt. So please, I implore you to take a look at this and Certain Women and other films as well. Wonderful choice, and kudos to the Criterion Collection for doing this. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And the cover art here is fantastic, and yes, I really just, I'm thrilled. So here it is, Old Joy, Spine number 1008. Okay, my friends, that's it for the comments that I have. So sorry if my comments seem a little bit ill-prepared or anything like that. I apologize as always, but these are just my immediate impressions. We'll see more as the films are released, and we'll see specifics, and if anything does come up in the meantime, of course, that's something that we can always discuss going forward. I should note that the releases are scheduled for December 3rd and December 10th. There were no releases announced for anything beyond those dates, so this doesn't seem to include any releases for the latter half of December, and there are only 4 releases. Now, I was just asking around my friends who are very expert in Criterion collection as well, and I was asking, is this normal, do you think? And I think the general consensus so far is that, in the past, in past years for releases in December, December has usually been a light month with respect to releases. So, for instance, the number of releases this month, 4, doesn't seem to be anything beyond what we have seen in the past. So I don't think this is anything unusual from Criterion. Also, in terms of the timing, in past years, I understand that the Criterion Collection sometimes had releases for only the first 2 weeks of December, and in the last 2 weeks there were never any releases. I think last year, 2018, there was the release Panique, which was released, I think, in the 3rd week of December, but that seems perhaps to be more of an exception rather than the norm when we look at past years, 2017, 2016, etc. It seems to me, based on this information that was provided by people who are much more expert than I, that Criterion does this, and so I don't think this is anything unusual or anything to concern oneself about. Of course, this doesn't preclude the possibility that there might be something more around the end of December, but it's probably not going to be the case. So it's probably such that this is going to be the last batch of releases for December 2019. And so if that is the case, what a way to go out with a bang and with great sensitivity and intelligence and sharpness. And once again, Criterion shows us, at least in the context of these announcements anyway, how much it loves cinema. And we love Criterion, and I certainly love Criterion for the fact that it is so obvious that Criterion is so much in love with cinema. And in the end, that's what counts. So anyway, my friends, let's just keep our eyes open for any more announcements that might come our way, if any. But other than that, if there are no more announcements for 2019, then this is a great year. I will be talking about the 2019 releases closer to the end of the year, of course. I'll try to keeping up with my 2019 release videos, but I've been falling behind with those, so I apologize for that. But in any event, my friends, let us enjoy our time here 2019 with these great releases from Criterion, and let's enjoy watching films, Criterion and otherwise, going forward. So what do you think about this release announcement for 2019 December? Are you impressed? Are you not impressed? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Okay, my friends, so let me leave you, and until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please, please, please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. So until we meet again, my friends, cheers.